Welcome back to the class, everyone. Synergy is one of the most important things when it comes to putting a squad together. It can be as simple as making sure that everyone's of the same faction so that the bonuses apply to everyone, or it can be as niche as making sure that you have one specific character on your side or the enemy side to unlock a much needed bonus. But as helpful as synergy can be, it can be really detrimental if you break it. And that's exactly what I want to talk about in today's video, or rather that's exactly what I want to talk about avoiding in today's video. Before me, I have 10 teams where there might be the possibility or temptation to break synergy either knowingly or unknowingly. And while there are some squads that we'll talk about later in the video that have been around for a long time, that people are still breaking synergy on, I want to focus on some of the newer teams, or rather the newer abilities or newer characters on older teams that people might be breaking synergy with. And the first one is going to be Carth Onasi with the very new and pretty fun Omicron on Zalbar. The Omicron, as far as 5v5 goes, it does a lot of really great things where it makes everyone immune to daze and expose, adds a bunch of stats, gives Juhani the ability to actually kind of deal damage with 400% offense. The look there is because it doesn't actually end up amounting to much. It also allows Jolie to revive all the allies. It does a lot of really cool things, and while it's not the best thing in the game, it does take the team to a whole new level. That being said, I have seen both reports from .gg as well as users saying the team is, or the best version of the team is with Canderous, because Canderous is an Old Republic character that can probably deal more damage than Juhani even with her 400% bonus. The giant problem with this, where you will break synergy, is that it says at the very start of the line here, while in 5v5 Grand Arena, if all allies are light side Old Republic and the leader is not a Jedi. So by having Carth there, you're kind of fulfilling the second clause. But if you put Candy in here, you completely kill this entire part of the Omicron, which is a pretty big deal. So yes, you're going to have to side without him and put in Juhani, unless you want to be essentially stuck with the same Carth that we all got 4 or 5 years ago or whenever it was. So that is one thing to take note of, whether you're using the team on offense or defense. It's going to perform significantly better with Juhani, because otherwise you lose all of those bonuses that were in there. Next up is actually going to be the First Order. And this one is a little bit tricky because for those of you who have had Kylo for a really long time, you probably have used him exclusive with First Order, because you know that if you don't have only First Order on the team, Hux here will not stop the enemy's turn meter. Everyone on his team has to be First Order, and he has to have an advantage for that to happen. But sometimes it was worth putting in a character like Wat Tambor to get a tech onto SLKR or crew and forfeiting that turn meter, especially if the enemy couldn't gain turn meter in the first place, like JMK. But now we have Dark Side Rey on the team as well, or at least we should the vast majority of the time. And while you can run a variety of squads that are all First Order with her under Kylo, you really don't want to break the synergy by putting in a character like Wat, Armor, or GBA, and it's actually in a few different places. She has it listed out in her special if all allies are First Order and there's any version of Kylo Ren, so that this whole portion is completely blocked off. And it's also in her unique, and I actually haven't dug deep enough into the code, and by that I don't understand the code enough, so maybe someone can comment down below. If all allies are First Order at the start of the battle, Rey gains 100% max health. I don't know if the First Order breaks this or if it breaks the whole unique. Either way, that's something that you don't want to happen, because part of the whole gimmick of Darkseid Rey being there is you really don't want her to die, because in every way possible, she is supercharging Supreme Leader Kylo Ren's ult, plus doing a lot of other really helpful things. So don't break the synergy by putting in Wat. You will lose at a bare minimum 100% of the health on Rey, as well as the turn meter stoppage from Hux, and then the other thing in Rey's special, and maybe even more than that if that clause actually applies to the whole unit and not just to the max health. The next one is going to be a little bit, actually not a little bit, it's going to be really Datacron dependent. Right now there's a Datacron out there that's becoming very popular, and it's actually being used quite a lot with Bam, and that is on Sana, and that's great. Like, you use Bam, do Han and Chewie, go kill Jabba, that's fantastic. But a lot of people are seeing these massive bonuses here about, at the start of the encounter, all allies gain 100% max health, max protect, or 50% max protection, 25 speed. It does a ton of stuff that looks like it would just be a great plug and play, very similar to how Pow was kind of a plug and play for that max health gain that he was giving to Rey or to Leia or whoever. And a lot of the times when you think about the composition that Sana is used in, you think of Rebel characters like Captain Han, Stormtrooper Han, Cara Dune, Rolo. So you think, oh, she's gonna be fine under a Leia team. No, she does not, for whatever reason, and it's actually a good reason, I don't mean that like that. She doesn't have the Rebel tag because she's not a Rebel. So you break some pretty serious synergy with Leia's leadership. It says in here, actually, I believe it's on her unique, where if all rebels or all allies are rebels at the start of her turn and each enemy's turn, Leia gains Fearless. This Fearless buff is very important. It massively punishes the enemy team for not targeting her. Many of you will know who have played around with Leia that she doesn't have a direct taunt, but what she does is she says, hey, every time that you choose to go and hit an enemy that's not me, I'm going to gain 2% max health, 4% ultimate charge, and all enemies, not just the one that's attacking, are going to be losing 5% mastery, 15% defense, and tenacity. So you just have a whole lot of things happening here with this buff that she gets. If Sana is on the team, aka not a rebel, it stops this whole thing from happening, and what you allow the enemy to do is just to completely charge down the sides like Drogan or R2 or whoever else is in the team, Sana herself, and they don't have to worry about Leia getting all those stacking stats and all of your decreasing stats because it just never happens. Your attackers never run out of accuracy, her health never gets so big that it kills Bane in one shot. It's just not really an issue, even with everything that Sana would be applying to the team. So go use Sana with Bam, get a great ROI there, let Leia do her own thing. Next up is going to be Queen Amidala, and this might become a temptation if you have gotten a lot of Conquest characters but have not gotten JMK, which that's probably few and far between to begin with, but we want to cover all of our bases here, and that is putting Commander Ahsoka Tano under the Queen Amidala team. This also applies to Clone Wars Chewie, and that is because both of them have the Scoundrel tag. And the reason why that's important is because in Queen Amidala's kit, it states in a few different places that she cannot summon the decoy when the Scoundrel's present. While in Grand Arena, and if there are no Galactic Legend or Scoundrel allies, and all allies are Galactic Republic, then all these things happen, of which one of them is summoning the ally handmaiden decoy. And you're thinking, oh, well that's fine, I can just wait to use the Ascension gun. Nope, also can't do that. If all allies are Galactic Republic and there are no Galactic Legend or Scoundrel allies, summon a handmaiden decoy. So pretty much you completely cut yourself off from the decoy if you have any Scoundrel ally in there. Not to mention that there's also some anti-synergy aside from the tag with Queen Amidala and Commander Ahsoka, where Queen Amidala just makes it universally so that you can't have your cooldowns manipulated, meaning even without JMK there, Kat would typically be able to lower her cooldown for her Force Sleep through Xian and everyone assisting, but at the same time, she can't because Queen Amidala just doesn't allow that period. So while Kat would be giving a stat boost, it ends up being significantly worse because of those two reasons. Next up is going to be one that's probably little bit more rare because everyone is so keen on using Darth Bane on offense, which they should be, by the way. But that is using Bane on defense and not in the leadership spot. Unfortunately, this was still placed, I believe, a few thousand times this last Grand Arena, or at least the previous season, not just this last week. And it's just really not great. Not only does Bane lose all these bonuses for not being in the specific rule of 2, but there actually is a way to almost make up for them when putting Bane on defense by using his leadership, where it doesn't quite do everything that it does in the unique. But if you scroll down here, you can see that he starts to get all these bonuses once all of his other Sith allies start to get picked off, which, you know, lore-wise makes a lot of sense because that's kind of the whole concept of the Rule of 2, is the Sith keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So yeah, he gets a bonus turn and defeated at the start of that bonus turn, then Bane gains 5% max health, protection, offense, and speed, an additional 5% health, max protection, offense, and speed for each relic amplifier level that defeated Sith ally had. So again, he has ways to bail himself out, but if you put him on defense and you have him with C and just some other Sith, you're breaking both options of synergy out for Bane, either using him on offense or using him on defense as a leadership. Next up is probably what should be considered an older breaking of synergy, but I've noticed that it's become a lot more common and popular right now because HK47 has a pretty good datacron that you would think would synergize really well with Sith Empire because it involves fear. But unfortunately, due to most of Darth Malgus' kit, it does not. There's a few places in here where it will specifically line out at the start of the battle. If all allies are Sith, then Darth Malgus gains health, protection, speed, recovers, all that fun stuff. HK47, while he was fortunate enough to be given the Sith Empire tag, they didn't give him the Sith tag, which is really brutal for him overall, because that pretty much cuts him out of the entirely new home that CG had given to him under Darth Revan. There are a few other places in here where I believe this will only spread as well if all allies were Sith at the start of the battle, and that does also apply to the Omicron portion for when it spreads to more characters. So overall, HK just kind of kills. He does add a little bit, but he ends up taking more away than he's actually giving, which is rather unfortunate for him. Next up is going to be Iden Versio. Iden Versio really didn't negotiate at all at this. Basically, most of her kit is built around the fact that if no other allies had the leader tag, you can just stop right there. If no other allies have the leader tag, none of the stuff is going to end up happening. And lo and behold, Piet, Veers, Moff Gideon, several of the other really good Imperial troopers all have the leader tag, even without being in the leader spot. Will just stop all that synergy that she would otherwise be bringing to the table, whether on offense or defense. I'm guessing most of the people that are doing this are doing it on defense because they're not noticing all the things that are just suddenly being cut out of her kit, but it ends up being a pretty big deal. Speaking of another older team, and this one is still pretty common for whatever reason. I think there was like 7,000 people, or 7,000 times this was placed on defense. So there's actually two issues here. And for those of you who got Cam in the Lightspeed bundle, this is something you really need to be aware of if you aren't already. If you put a non-Galactic Republic Jedi into this team, you are going to effectively be neutering a lot of Jedi Anakin's damage. And partially because Cam's Unique says, if all allies are Galactic Republic Jedi at the start of the battle, they have 30 speed, 40% max health, and 20% offense. Since Old Ben or Ezra, or actually several other characters, aren't Galactic Republic, you lose all these bonuses. And I have to remind you that speed is converted into damage on this team. So Jedi Anakin is really losing out on damage twice, and not to mention the whole team is actually losing out on most of those bonuses. But in addition to that, even if you don't have Ki-Adi-Mundi, Jedi Anakin has a very specific text here that says the bonus turn that he gets and his next attack deals 100% more damage if all allies were Galactic Republic at the start of the battle. Meaning, while he doesn't care as much about the Jedi tag like Qui-Gon Jinn does, he cares a lot about that Galactic Republic tag. So the second you put Old Ben or Ezra or whoever it is that isn't Galactic Republic Jedi into the team, you're immediately short-circuiting a ton of damage that the team would otherwise have and be able to blow up the enemy in one hit, like I really like Anakin to do, again, whether it's being used on offense or on defense. Next up is going to be Starkiller. This one, for whatever reason, is also still getting placed. I think people get just a little bit confused because you obviously see Starkiller being used with Emperor Palpatine and Mara Jade, and there's also some good synergy with Darth Vader. The issue is you're just not allowed to use all of them together. If we dig into Starkiller's kit, he has very specific criteria, not only in GAC, but also outside of GAC, where he wants to have exactly one Jedi, one light side unaligned Force user, one Sith, and one other dark side unaligned Force user. The second you break that synergy in any way, you lose out on a ton of really good stuff in the unique that, again, doesn't just pertain to GAC, but other game modes. 100% critical damage and max health, max protection. Those are huge. Speed, immune to daze and stun. Like, that is so much of the kit locked behind this. And then there's also a lot of other goodies down here. But ultimately, as long as you have the right team comp with one of each of those, you should be fine. And it is also worth mentioning in 3v3, you can use any combo of those 4 different factions. You just can't double down and end up having, say, 2 Sith in the team. You need to either have 1 Sith, 1 unaligned Force user, 1 Jedi, 1 dark side unaligned Force user. The combo has to be unique, if that makes sense. And last but not least is going to be Darth Revan. I know we already talked about Malgus and the interaction that they have with HK, or the unfortunate interaction they have with HK. But if you are using Darth Revan lead, there's also another thing that you need to be aware of. While if you got Traya and you're like, oh, she's a really great Sith, she probably goes on my already really great Darth Revan team, the answer is really kind of unfortunate. The two other metas, fun history lesson, The two of their metas were almost back to back when Squad Arena was really, really important. And one of the ways that they wanted to separate the two characters so people couldn't make a really large mega team was Traya was always able to dispel debuffs whenever their turn came around to it, but Darth Revan, one of the whole ways that his kit functions is by using debuffs to his advantage. So he will be giving his team ferocity both through his leadership as well through this special, where everyone will get negative defense and tenacity, but will get a ton of offense and potency. That leadership then will also turn that ferocity into speed, which is really, really nice. If Traya is cleansing this every single time, neither part of the team really gets to its full potential. While Darth Revan might still be able to use a lot of that lingering speed from the ferocity that comes on after, he'll never really be able to stack it, and then he'll never really be able to take part in the damage portion of it. This is really unfortunate because if they do have 5 stacks of ferocity between turns, that means they're actually still losing the defense and still being vulnerable, but since it's cleansed by the time they take a turn, they're never really getting to take part in the offensive part of it. At any rate, the two characters are great, just don't put them on the same team. And as one last final note, and this one's going to have a caveat, I would just avoid in general putting Sith that aren't Sith Empire under Darth Revan, because he does have an extra clause in here where everyone is also going to be getting an extra 50% critical damage if all allies are Sith Empire allies. Now, the one small caveat to that you might be able to excuse is if you're in a very certain position where you're using a team, say like this, and you're wanting to add Darth Talon. And the reason why is because Darth Talon's unique is going to be adding 20 speed universally to all of her Sith allies. And sometimes 20 extra speed on Darth Revan will make him so fast you will actually cut out older counters like Imperial Troopers and or Bounty Hunters with Zam. So again, probably not something you want to do all the time, but if you're trying to cut out a very specific counter, the 50% critical damage hit can be taken in order to get that extra 20 speed from Talon. She also does some other fun bonuses on the team as well. So that is going to be it. Those are our 10 teams that you should not be breaking synergy with if you can help it. Let me know in the comment section if there's another newer or older team that you see people still not quite getting right. But until the next time, thank you for watching and stay awesome.